Hello, you are listening to On the Topic podcast, the home of the diseased. This week, I'm probably going to roundhouse kick you into a swimming pool. I'm Dan.
And I'm slapping you into 2022, Dan. I'm Alex. And it's been a couple of weeks, Dan. We're behind the mic, so people can stop losing their minds and they can start to enjoy some audio delicious podcasts return to the airwaves. But before we get into today's episode, which is going to be the Cobra Kai Season 4 review, Dan, a lot has happened in the world, oddly, in the couple of weeks that we haven't been on the old tinterwebs. But before we get into all of that and more, what have you been up to? You mentioned about the disease and there's crosses on our doors. What's all about?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully we're not diseased anymore, but we were supposed to see the Batman, and we were going to do a review for the pod, and obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah. No.
But the week before, I genuinely believed I had COVID. So I had headaches where it felt like my brain was rattling. Like I've never had a headache like that in my life. It felt really weird. I had a cough, sore throat, sniffles. I kept testing negative on the old lateral flow. And anyway, we get to the Thursday. We're supposed to see the Batman, knowing that I was going to finish work at 5 and head over to yours, Alex.
Oh, I was looking forward to it.
I was buzzing. Not to overshare too much, but basically, I thought if I shower at lunchtime, I'll be ready. I can just go.
Fresh
Happy days. So I'm having a wash in the shower, and I start to notice little blistery things on my chest, and I thought they're not normal spots. You know, as adults, we get little whiteheads and stuff like that. Anyway, Mrs. comes home, and I said, "Can you just have a look at my back? I feel a little bit itchy. I've got these like weird blisters on my chest." So I showed her.
Sounds like the beginning of a horror film, doesn't
it? Yeah, genuinely. So she has a look, and she goes to me, "I think you've got chicken pox. But we should probably go around the pharmacy and get you looked at." I was like, "All right then, let's do that." So I give my line manager a call. So I just need to pop to the pharmacy. I think I might have chicken pox, and very supportive. She said, "Yep, 100% go get yourself looked at, and if you need some time off, fair dues." So off I pop. I stay outside. Mrs. goes in with a picture on her phone, a couple of pictures, and she goes, they're stood there for ages, Alex. 5-10 minutes. She comes out.
Do we know what picture she was showing there? Because that could get quite dangerous.
Hopefully of the spots on my chest and my back, but I don't know. She could be showing her anything at this point, but she comes out with this cream. Pharmacist is 99% sure that you've got chicken pox. But I did
shout out to pharmacists.
I did a phone consultation with a nurse as well, and she was 100% sure. But it wasn't very well again. So as I was getting better, get the chicken pox backwards on a downward spiral. You know, feverish nights of sleep where you wake up in cold sweats, and it's kind of gross. But I had lots to keep me occupied, Alex. It's all good in the world. I watched all 5 Die Hard films.
Oh yes, that's one way to pass time, isn't it?
And I think we've talked about this before. That I'd never seen Die Hard with a Vengeance. And I tell you what, it is fantastic.
To use your term, Dan, I think it's a ding-dang delight.
Yes.
The only criticism I have at the very end is very rushed.
Yeah. Oh, I agree.
With, it's almost like The Matrix, or perhaps a little bit of Armageddon. It's over, guys. Pull the pin and let's be done with it. Like, they've chased the terrorists around New York City. They've kind of saved the day. And then they're in some kind of parking lot outside, like a 7-Eleven, like a convenience store or something. And there's like a helicopter showdown. It's all very odd. And all we need to do is just shoot the propeller blades and then bring the helicopter down. And that's, I think, my only feeling of the misstep of the film. Everything else, it's brilliant. The pace is perfect. The music's spot on. It's tonally a phenomenal Die Hard film. But the ending, the final 5 minutes, I think lets it down.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. But otherwise, it's probably my second favourite Die Hard film, which is quite bold.
It's a good shout.
And I know we sort of talked about this in the week on WhatsApp, and I ranked it Die Hard 1, Die Hard with a Vengeance, Die Hard 2, Die Hard 4, and then Die Hard 5, which is
Mm.
It's just like someone went, let's do a fifth Die Hard film. What's it going to be about? Send him to Russia. But the only reason I wasn't keen on 4 and 5, I feel like John McClane sort of loses his character a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we'll probably touch on Bruce Willis in a minute, but it just feels like he probably didn't want to be there for 4 and 5.
No.
We know he's a bit of a diva.
Yeah, and you know that from the Divas episode. If you haven't listened to that, then it's a really good one, and we share some stories from the world of celebrity and when they don't quite behave themselves. And of course, yes, Bruce Willis. I think you shared that one on set. It's quite an interesting one. Yeah, I mean, I think I told you, like, I think I watched 15 minutes of Die Hard 5. Didn't really feel like a Die Hard film. Didn't really feel like there's much going on, so I had to turn it off. And I subsequently then saw some reviews and thought, well, I wasn't missing much. My guilty pleasure, though, was Die Hard 4.0.
It is good.
Now the editing is poor. If you know those TV everyone's seen these type of TV programs, usually over Christmas. You know the ones where they show clips from films, they tell you everything that's wrong with it, and they point out the missteps, or the drinks cans being left in the shot, and it's a Star Trek film or like a Middle Earth film, Lord of the Rings. Bloopers and faux pas. Well, there's plenty from Die Hard 4.0, like there's not the lip syncing's off. So it's all very odd, and it's ruined the film for me. But I think the casting is really quite good, and I really quite enjoyed it. So yeah, I mean, your running order, don't disagree with the first two. Die Hard with a Vengeance, which is 3. Then it's 4 for me, 4.0. Then it's 2, and then 5 can get in the C.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
Yeah, decent film.
Don't know. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Die Hard 2. Again, it's up there. I think that's another festive film. But
yeah.
Plenty of Christmas references. Other than Die Hard, the other thing that was keeping me busy was Jurassic World Evolution on the Nintendo Switch. So I got it on offer, full edition, so you get all the whole shebang. Kept me entertained.
It's a good game.
It really is. You have to sort of like use your noggin a little bit when you're doing things. Oh, I've got a diseased dinosaur. I need to go cure it. It's quite fun, especially the sort of campaign. I like the Jurassic Park one where you've got to drive around, get the raptors back in the cage, and plenty to keep me occupied while I was ill. But back to normal life, back to work now. It's end of year, so it's obviously a little bit crazy. But that's me, Alex. What about you? What's been going on in your world?
Coronavirus. Old lady COVID.
That pesky Rona.
She finally got me. So I'm a little bit nasally than normal. Apologies, listener. But if you listen to us, you know that by now. Got the old COVID. Now, look, I don't want any sympathies. A lot of people are getting it in a minute. And I think, touch wood, I'm quite fortunate it hasn't been as bad as some of the horror stories. And I was fully expecting to get it because I went to a wedding, Dan.
Yeah, of course.
And sometimes you just got to go, you know what? These are things being put off for far too long. You get hit by a bus tomorrow or something terrible could happen. You cannot do these things again. So at some point, you've got to go, I've got to live my life. So no sympathies needed. Fully to blame. But if it was good, it was for a good cause. We had a lovely weekend. Otherwise, Dan, just busy with the boring adult life stuff. But what I would say is, and I'm not, you're not an F1 fan necessarily, the sport, Formula 1?
No, I've never sort of really branched away from football, which is, I know, a little bit sad. I do watch a bit of rugby from time to time with the missus, usually the Six Nations, but that's about it, really.
Well, I'm not particularly a fan either, by the way. I watch the odd race day, but I'm not really into it. But what I would say is Netflix's Ride to Survive is very good. Have you heard that?
Okay.
It's a docuseries, and so it's a documentary based thing, and they weave in and out of the 8 or 9 episodes of the season a race, and they go behind the scenes and they do interviews, and they show the drivers and how they're feeling, how they prepare, and it's actually quite interesting. And there's lots of politics, there's lots of big egos to expect from the world of F1, I thoroughly enjoyed it. There's 4 seasons. And I'm not going to go back and see the other ones because it's kind of like, well, why would you? You've already kind of know how it ends. But it's very good. And I'm not an F1 fan. So it just goes to show that it's quite an interesting watch. So if you're ever stuck with something to do, whilst I had the old coronavirus, I laid up in bed for a couple of days and I smashed my way through it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So a bit of a left field one, but one nonetheless, if you want something different, it's a really good series, really good quality as you'd expect from Netflix. Editing and the rest of it. So yeah, go give that a look.
Nice. I mean, there's some good stuff on Netflix at the moment. I mean, if you want a couple of my recommendations, Inventing Anna, which is a series about real events. Very good. Don't watch it when you're ill because it will sort of go into your feverish dreams like I did. I had a dream that I was investigating her for her crimes. Genuinely a weird night of dreams that night. And The Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds and Mark Ruffalo. Very good film.
Now, yeah, I thought it was a lot better than, say, 6 Underground or I mean, Red Notice was quite good. Have you seen that one? With The Rock?
Yes.
And
Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot, yeah. That was also a good one because Netflix tends to be a little bit light on the substance. This one, I think, had promise. I think it partly delivered. And it was an enjoyable kind of sci-fi action film, wasn't it? I think Ryan Reynolds was superb, and so was the young guy, who played the younger Adam. So yeah, I agree. A good watch, that one.
But outside of that, there's been a couple of things that have happened around the time of recording, Alex. First one was the passing of Taylor Hawkins from the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, very sad. Very sad.
Genuinely, yeah. I mean, my music taste probably wouldn't be half of what it is now if it wasn't for the Foo Fighters. So genuinely sort of, I'm not usually affected by celebrity deaths, Alex, but that one got me a little bit. Genuinely sort of put a lump in the old throat. And secondly, let's talk about Sunday. Let's talk about the Oscars and how a certain moment overshadowed what was essentially probably one of the more diverse Oscars in recent years.
Yeah. Very odd. And now you don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and there's a little bit of history between them. I mean, we should explain. It's obviously Will Smith smacking Chris Rock in the face. Slapping, should I say. Not smacking. What's your take on it, Dan?
Poor joke. Poor reaction, and I'm always in the genuine belief that if you're happy in life, you will handle things in a better way. I don't know if Will Smith is actually in a good place because the way he reacted, he sort of laughed at the joke first, sort of realizes that his wife is the brunt of the joke because Jada Pinkett Smith looks at him, and then the next thing you know, he's walking up and he's clouting him. And I know a lot of people said, it was contrived to boost the ratings.
Looked it, but I think it was legit.
Yeah. I mean, Chris Rock can't act for shit. He looks genuinely quite shell shocked, and he does sort of recompose himself, and he sort of rescues that situation quite well.
He took it well. The guy can roll with a slap, can't he?
Yeah,
I wouldn't be able to. I'd be rolling on the floor like the footballers, like my head had been blown off. Because Will's not a small guy, and he's obviously he's trained to fight. So theatrically, I mean, but he meant it. That would have hurt.
Yeah, I do think as well that if you're going to tell a joke, it should be about someone's actions and not necessarily about someone's relative. But they're both as bad as one another. But Will Smith has come out and apologised.
Yeah, well, a couple of days later. I mean, from my perspective, it was a poor joke, I think, because you're making fun of someone's medical condition. Apparently, Chris Rock didn't know. I mean, that's questionable because he's obviously looking to make a point. You don't just pick out someone from the audience and make a G.I. Joe joke. But they have got, as I say, history. But then no one should be able to condone violence. And Will Smith he's an icon. People look to people of that nature, of that status. to be a role model. But then to not have any kind of repercussions inside, a celebratory, event, I think is poor. I mean, he shouldn't be celebrated. Oh, people are shocked in one instance and celebrated, 10, 15 minutes later. They're quite a contrast. I think there needs to be some repercussions for his behaviour.
Mm.
Chris Rock isn't going to press charges, and that's his own choice. And the states don't think it's going to get involved, because I think in America, much like the UK, I think you can get the police can charge in absence of someone making a complaint.
Yeah,
it's affected the states, complaining on their behalf, and they're not going to intervene, which I think is a stroke of luck. But I mean, it just seems wildly wrong that he can just walk away, make a half-assed apology, and then walk away from that. So I don't know. I'm disappointed. Will Smith is one of my most favourite actors, and I think he's let himself down. Yeah, it wasn't right. And if I was him, if I was that upset, I would be shouting. Even that is a show of losing control. But I would have shouted. I would have said exactly what he said. And if you want to give him a jab, you give him a jab in the alleyway, in the ribs.
Exactly.
No one's looking. Don't do it with billions of people watching. I just think it was a poor show of judgment. I think you're right, Dan. You probably hit the nail on the head. The guy probably isn't happy. There's lapse in judgment. And it wasn't quite the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I did sort of put the feelers out on social media as well, onto our OTT pages. And we did get a response from my namesake, Dan. He says, Will Smith is a bully who only did what he did because he is bigger than Chris Rock and knew he probably wouldn't have retaliated. If Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, made the same joke, not a chance that he would have given him a slap. Just to add to this, what gets me is that in his acceptance speech, he cracked a joke about crazy Richard Williams. Richard Williams was diagnosed with dementia a few years back.
Yeah.
Not cool.
It's not cool, man. So no, I mean that story is still developing as we're recording, but it's very much a sad state of affairs, I think. That's Will Smith. I've got a question for you, Dan. Something else is doing the rounds. Are there more doors than wheels in the world?
Oh, I've heard about this. I'm going to say there is more doors.
Okay. Well, any particular reason? Rationale?
Well, I mean, if you think about a car, most of them have 4 doors. And you got all the doors in your house. Yeah. I mean, when we say a wheel, like, are we referring to just a normal wheel on a car?
Anything that's circular, Dan, I think is usually what people are saying.
Jesus. Okay, maybe wheels then. If you think of a screw, is that a wheel? Would that count?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, it looks like the world is pretty much split half and half. It really dividing people. Apparently, in the UK, for wheels alone, as in on the vehicles, there are 16 million wheels on the market, which someone's estimated there's then 100 million wheels globally. I don't know how they'd quite do the maths, but I mean, anything could be depicted as a wheel, right? So in a car, you've got a steering wheel.
Yeah.
You've then got maybe a spare wheel in the back of your car. So you've already got then more wheels than doors on cars. If you think about HGVs, big heavy lorries, they've got plenty of wheels, 6 maybe, not including any spares, so on and so forth. So there could be, I think, more wheels than doors in the world. But it's, as I say, it's an interesting one. It's one of those whimsical debates. But yeah, roughly just over 50% of most surveys, just looking here on the old Tinterwebs, say that it's wheels.
Oh man, that's
an interesting one.
A lot of wheels.
It is. So people disagree or they've got a compelling argument for one or the other. Get in touch and let us know, because apparently everyone's got an opinion on that one. Interesting stuff.
I know we sort of touched on Bruce Willis earlier, talking about Die Hard. At the time of recording, today, he is stepping away from acting following his diagnosis of aphasia. Now, if anyone's unfamiliar of what aphasia is, it's a language disorder that impacts the ability to produce or understand speech. Speech is quite a big, important in an actor's role, and you've got to talk and all that stuff. So, genuinely quite sad to read that today. Given that I've watched all the Die Hard films, I'm like, I'm warm into old Brucey. Sad times.
Yeah, and it's obviously at a time where he doesn't want to, to hang up the old scripts, but he can't work, and it is a shame when someone has to stop prematurely, even if he's 67 or something. He's long in the tooth, but he still probably has some time left in him. Look at Sylvester Stallone, look at Arnold Schwarzenegger, Clint Eastwood. They're all still going to some degree or some aspect. And it's just a shame that he's got some kind of debilitating condition. So our thoughts, of course, with Bruce Willis.
I think that rounds up for the news, doesn't it, Alex?
It does, yeah. There's been plenty to talk about, and there's plenty of controversy. But we're going to put it all to one side, Dan. All of our diseases, all our medical ailments, our woes, world events, and we're going to go all the way back to Cobra Kai season 4.
I feel like it's been a long time coming, but then I sort of easily burned through this when it first dropped. Yeah. What would have been December 31st? I watched it. Yeah. I watched it in about 3 days. That was how good it was. Yeah,
it took me a little bit longer over Christmas. We did some traveling. I think it was a couple of weeks, but it didn't take long. And again, it's much the same with the good stuff. I think we did a season 3 review, didn't we?
Well, I think we covered all 3, didn't we?
We did 1 to 3, yeah.
Like roughly this time last year. It's a mammoth episode, but equally, it's got some good stuff in there. And I do wonder if some of your opinions have changed since. So I might have some questions for you after we sort of do an episode dive.
Looking forward to it.
Right, so I'll kick it off. Episode 1, let's begin. So Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do begin training together in an effort to beat Cobra Kai. Of course, the big bad. But Daniel and Johnny, of course, have disagreed on the best way to prepare their students. Now we enter John Kreese, who is now in contact with Terry Silver, and he invites him to come back to Cobra Kai. But Terry Silver declines, claiming that he has found peace in the lavish lifestyle he began living after leaving Cobra Kai. So he's quite rich. He's got servants. He's getting all the good stuff. And he's got quite a plush pad. And if I remember rightly, quite a good-looking girlfriend or wife.
Not bad in the old eyes.
No. Elsewhere, Daniel proposes to Johnny that Eagle Fang should integrate into Miyagi-Do, but Johnny disagrees, causing the two to agree that the 2 dojos should split up. So this love-in has broken up very quickly.
Yeah, very short-lived, because, of course, that was one of the most interesting aspects at the end of season 3. When they're together, they're both at the dojo, and they're both training alongside each other. And almost a couple of minutes later, cut away to new season, and it's all over as quickly as it's begun.
Kreese persuades Robbie to join Cobra Kai, and Robbie leads the other students by teaching them, the opposition, Miyagi-Do's karate to have an advantage. Now, Hawk initially faces resistance from the other Eagle Fang and Miyagi-Do students, because, of course, he was a bit of a baddie in the Cobra Kai days. However, after he proposes that he and the other students build an Okinawan, which is a sparring deck, I've probably not done the word any justice there, on the spare land at the dojo for practicing sessions, they begin to accept him. So Hawk seems to have turned a corner. The unity between the 2 dojos prompt Daniel and Johnny to agree and continue working together. Terry later contemplates returning to Cobra Kai. So we enter episode 2, First Learn Stand. So we're introduced to a new character here, Alex. We are introduced to Kenny Payne, who's a new...
And I think it's good to get some fresh blood. I was thinking about this when I was reflecting on the season. I really like Kenny. Kenny's an interesting character because he's a new kid in the block, isn't he? He's moved to I guess it's set in LA, isn't it? So
Yeah.
he's new to the area and doesn't know a lot of people, and he's immediately picked on. And I think this is one of the most interesting twists to this season.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this goes, and obviously we'll sort of get to it as we sort of hit the end of the season. But he ends up getting bullied by Daniel's son, Anthony LaRusso.
Yeah.
Kenny's classmates and Anthony trick him into cosplaying, causing him to get into a fight with them, but he runs away. He gets away just. Kenny, looking for help from his bullies, visits his older brother, Sean Payne, who was in the juvenile home, which I believe was the guy that Robbie had a fight with in season 3, was it?
Yeah. Where he went on the run and then he was in I guess, juvie, juvenile prison. And he ends up being pointed in Robbie's direction.
Daniel and Johnny agreed to each take a day of training for each other to better understand the other's style of teaching. Now, I've got something in my notes here, Alex. Executive producer Josh Held and Ralph Macchio have revealed that certain moments were left on the cutting floor. Speaking to Entertainment Weekly, Held admitted that Macchio was supposed to drink a potent health smoothie. So there's quite a nice moment where Johnny and Daniel sort of spend time together, and Johnny makes up this really nasty concoction.
Oh, yeah.
So this was cut out of it, apparently. The concoction that the team came up with was so disgusting that Macchio was unable to finish the drink without the risk of vomiting. Held said it was supposed to be like vodka and eggs. Ralph had to drink it, and it took like an interminable amount of time for him to choke down whatever the heck the prop master made. It was like baby food in real life. And as a dad yourself, Alex, you'll probably remember the days of feeding your son baby food. It's not nice, is it? It's quite thick.
Yeah, it's not pleasant. It's textured and it's mushy. You think that this day and age, in terms of the ability to be able to make things look real, that they couldn't give him something nice, but it just goes to show there's limitations, isn't there, in terms of the magic of TV and film.
Indeed. Elsewhere, we've got Amanda, who visits Tori at work in an effort to protect Sam and inadvertently gets Tori fired. Now, Kreese goes to confront Amanda at a grocery store, making her feel sorry for Tori. Amanda buys Tori some groceries, but Tori rejects them, leading to a confrontation at the car dealership. Awkward. Elsewhere, we've got Robbie and Kreese, who continue training the other Cobra Kai students in Miyagi-Do, but with their own twist on it. Daniel's eagle fang training leads him to fight with some hockey players, which is quite a funny moment.
This is one of my favourite moments because they've had some rocky starts, haven't they, in terms of exchanging their fighting styles and methodologies and philosophies, and having lots of fun. And they go to watch the hockey match, don't they? And they talk about, sometimes you just got to pick a fight. And Johnny effectively picks on a couple of them and does a runner, doesn't he? And leaves Daniel to go toe-to-toe with the whole hockey team, effectively. He holds himself, of course, perfectly, and he's usual the moves, but it's quite a funny moment. And Johnny turns up and says, "Oh, kind of what you've been doing," and there's all these bodies rolling around, and they both do a runner. But it's quite a funny scene. I quite enjoyed watching that one.
On to episode 3, Then Learn Fly. Daniel and his family, along with Johnny, Carmen and Miguel, have dinner together where they discuss Sam and Miguel's future, which is obviously quite awkward if you're sat in the same room with a bunch of adults talking about what they want you to do. Daniel and Johnny trade students so that each student gets both Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang style training, which on paper is quite a good idea.
Yeah.
Kenny, elsewhere, decides he's going to visit Cobra Kai, where Kreese actually rejects him as a student, saying he's too weak.
Very savage.
I mean, Kenny's quite a small lad anyway. He's still growing, bless him. Although initially saying he was too busy, Robbie agrees to teach Kenny some karate to help him defend himself by using his speed as strength. Again, great idea. Kenny visits the Cobra Kai dojo once more, finally convincing Kreese to allow him to train there. And I think they sort of put him up against one of the bigger lads, don't they?
Yeah.
He sort of goes to leg it, but I can't quite remember. He does something, and Kreese is actually sort of quite impressed. Carmen has trouble with her car. So Carmen being the mum of, what's his name, Alex? Miguel, yep. And Daniel offers to have it towed and fixed for her. Again, this makes things awkward for Johnny. Johnny informs Carmen that he doesn't want to take things slowly, and she agrees. Oh, boy. Because I think they were starting to spark a relationship, weren't they, in the previous season?
Indeed.
Terry visits Kreese and blames him for disturbing his peace of mind. Terry reflects on early Cobra Kai days with Kreese following their time in the military together, which was quite an interesting twist because we see some flashbacks in season 3, and you never sort of make the connection that guy with him was Terry Silver, but actually here we are
in the cage in Nam, and it's I mean that whole sequence in the season 3 was actually quite harrowing, really. And look, war isn't sadly is a thing still. Isn't a glorified event, no matter how much people dress up in nationalism and the rest of it. It's just not. It's not an enjoyable thing, and it's quite raw and it's quite horrific. And those scenes in season 3 that we keep on going back to are just quite haunting, I guess, for the characters.
Yeah.
It really plays. When you're right, 100%, you don't realise that the characters that are there were masterfully the characters that will then lead up into the later seasons. And one of them, of course, is Silver.
On to episode 4, I'm probably again not going to do this word justice. Bickfully. I think I've got it right.
I'll do.
Johnny gets frustrated at Daniel when he and Miguel begin to grow closer. Of course, Daniel is teaching Miguel how to drive. So not any karate moves here, just learning how to drive the old car. Kenny's middle school gets a tour of the high school where he runs into Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang students who encourage him to leave Cobra Kai, which he doesn't. Kreese introduces his students to Terry, informing him that he will also be joining the dojo as a sensei. Oh boy, it's not looking good. Carmen wants to tell Miguel about her relationship with Johnny, but Johnny sort of disagrees, is like, no, we should leave it for a little bit. She tells Johnny to let Miguel know when he is ready. So essentially on Johnny's terms. So Johnny sort of ends up contemplating on how he's going to break the news to Miguel, and has flashbacks to a similar situation from his childhood. And again, his childhood, like his raising, was sort of quite harrowing.
Yeah.
His mum's a bit of an arsehole, which is, quite sad. Elsewhere, we've got Tori. She's begun her new job at a children's entertainment venue where I think she was dressed up like a mermaid or something like that, wasn't it? Or
as a Disney princess to earn some money. And of course, who's there but the family? And it doesn't quite go to plan. There's not a fight as you'd expect, but is it Amanda?
Yeah, Amanda and Sam turn up, and Sam's just a bit of a dick to her. I think I said it in last year's episode. I think there's something about Sam that sort of doesn't sit quite right with me. She's just a bit of an arse.
She's not endearing as a character. I've got some reflections, I think, on some things I struggle with, and this whole relationship dynamic is one of them. But there's no winner in this one, and I don't think Sam comes off particularly well in this either.
No. Robbie provides Kenny with additional one-to-one training, but they are interrupted by Terry Silver, who inspires Robbie. Robbie confronts Johnny about Kenny, and the conversation quickly turns personal. When Cobra Kai, Miyagi-Do, and Eagle Fang students all attend the same drive-in theatre, of course, we get another fight. Terry and Kreese confront Daniel and Johnny at the Miyagi dojo. And that's pretty much where we leave it for episode 4.
We do.
They just rock up. So enter episode 5, where it carries on. So this one's called Match Point. Terry attempts to apologize to Daniel, who asks him and Kreese to leave, while Kreese admonishes Johnny for playing second fiddle to Daniel. So trying to pay them off to sort of open that rift.
Mind games. Yeah.
Terry informs Daniel and Johnny that Cobra Kai is imposing a fighting moratorium on their students until the All Valley tournament. So basically what they're trying to imply is they don't want their students to fight until we get to the tournament.
Yep. Save your energy. And there's a wager, isn't it?
Yeah.
So whoever wins, effectively, the losers have to leave the valley.
Yeah.
And there's a wager to be sorted. It's basically all in. It all comes down to the tournament, which, as we know from the last 3 seasons, is always going to be an exciting event to watch. And this season doesn't let us down. But
No.
yeah, everything is to play for, and it's all or nothing.
It doesn't really last long. I think it sort of comes a little bit later on at the prom. I can't remember what episode that is. I think it's like episode 7 or episode 8, but we'll sort of get to that in a minute. But Daniel sort of opens up to Johnny and talks about his history with Terry and suggests that he take over the training of all their students. Bad idea. Johnny disagrees and proposes a tournament-style fight between the two, with the first to 3 points taking over the training. So Daniel and Johnny are going to go head-to-head. Johnny begins preparing for the fight, while Daniel tries to find a way out. I mean, you can't blame him, really, because Johnny's a bit of a loose cannon. Daniel and Sam, Johnny and Miguel, as well as Terry and Kreese, each have disagreements on the best way to train for the All Valley. So it's all over the place, really.
Yeah.
The Cobra Kai students retaliate for the events that followed the drive-in theatre escalation, which we've got to mention. Hawk had his mohawk shaved off, which, it's not cool.
It's a shocking moment. That's his hallmark for the best part of 3 seasons.
Yeah,
and I think Hawk still is one of my most favourite characters in this. I think he goes through an interesting character development, and it's an interesting space. I think we don't see too much of him up until this point. I think I don't know whether that's accidental writing or poor script work. I don't know, but he has a late kind of role to play in the season. At least that's my opinion. Do you feel that, Dan?
Yeah, 100%. Especially like the final episode.
Yeah, he really comes into his own at the end. I just wonder whether they could have done a little bit more with him in the episodes leading up. But anyway, he's one of my favourites, and he's still I think he's still a fantastic character.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he was one of my favourite characters when we did our character breakdown last year.
Yeah,
100%. Daniel and Johnny attempt to reach an agreement for the last time before fighting, but ultimately compete against each other. The fight comes down to the final match point that results in a tie, causing the two to split their dojos permanently.
It's a great scene, actually. I really enjoyed it. And they both effectively knock each other out, don't they? So they both hit the ground at the same time, and therefore no one wins. And I think that's probably the most fairest way they can call it. But it's quite a good kind of dramatic scene, because it is, again, everything to play for. But I think the right result in the end.
Yeah. Episode 6, Kicks Get Chicks. During the All Valley board meeting, the members of the board argue on nearly every aspect of the tournament before finally coming to a consensus on some changes. Elsewhere, we got Miyagi-Do and Cobra Kai who embrace the changes quickly and begin strategizing. Meanwhile, Eagle Fang are reluctant to accept them, but begin looking for female members to join the dojo. So this essentially, they're opening up a female side of the tournament. It makes it more inclusive for everyone.
It does. And with that, they also include a skills element. So actually, it's not just about brute force and who's the biggest. There's also some elements of which both dojo could perhaps win over Cobra Kai. And I think that's what makes it interesting. And I'll talk about it in a couple of episodes' time. But I think it makes for an interesting couple of episodes. It's not just a case of looking at the round and who has the most interesting fights. I mean, you still can't beat, I think, season 1's original competition. I think that was brilliantly done and such in feeling with the original films. But I think this added something. And yes, you could say it drew it out, but I think it really was an interesting dynamic and made it fresh. So I definitely think as a story mechanism, it was phenomenal. Really good.
So the next bit, which I'm about to mention, I feel this actually sort of breaks the walls down a little bit for this character, and we see a bit more of a human, emotional side to her. So Tori, we see her arguing for her aunt, who wants her mother's disability checks. I mean, what a dick. Tori turns to Amanda for help when she wants to re-enroll in school, but needs her to agree. So we're actually sort of seeing a more vulnerable side to her, which I sort of found quite fascinating. Sam obviously comes in with them both talking and disagrees with Tori returning to school, leading to an argument between Sam and her mum. So Sam goes off to visit Aisha from season 1.
Yes.
And I think she was in season 2 as well.
Yeah.
In Santa Barbara for guidance on how to deal with Tori. So on Tori's first day back at school, Sam threatens her.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that'll keep her off your back. But equally, you're still making yourself look like a dick.
Yeah.
I'm trying to watch my language. I nearly dropped a C-bomb there. Oh, Daniel. Following the shaving incident, Hawk decides to quit karate despite Dimitri's pleas to continue. Hawk returns to Miyagi-Do after a conversation with Dimitri. So, I mean, Hawk, bless him, looks dejected. His confidence sort of like is through the floor. He is not a happy person. But, as your best friend, Dimitri does a great job to sort of pull him back and go, you're better than this.
Indeed.
Johnny Miguel convinced Piper, who is Moon's ex-girlfriend, to join Eagle Fang. But she rocks up at Cobra Kai instead, which discourages Johnny. Following encouragement from Miguel, Johnny continued his recruitment for a female member. Daniel confronts Robbie in a convenience store and fails to have him stand up to Terry Silver. So on to episode 7, Minefields.
Things start to heat up from this point, don't they?
It does. So in the locker room, Anthony steals Kenny's clothes to embarrass him, which is, Anthony's such a dick.
He wasn't nicely depicted in the earlier seasons, the lazy teenage kid who's always on his devices. He doesn't get much better in the latter season. He's just an entitled bully, effectively, and it's poor little Kenny. It doesn't warrant any of this, and that's why I think it's such an interesting. I think it's genius writing, because actually the LaRussos are seen as the saviors of the valley and white and white, and very noble, and then you got Anthony being a dick and just effectively having the same kind of behaviours as Cobra Kai. The bully and the strike first, no mercy kind of mentality.
Yeah.
Everything that Daniel wouldn't want. And I think that's almost under his nose. He doesn't realise it's just such an interesting character to write into the season and to behave that way. I think it's really, really fascinating.
I just find this story arc between the two of them quite fascinating because I say they're. I think you mentioned earlier there is a twist in this,
Yeah.
and I didn't see it coming, but I think we'll get to that in episode 10.
Mm.
As Johnny prepares to tell Miguel about his relationship with Carmen, Miguel begins to suspect the relationship himself. So Carmen and Johnny finally tell Miguel about their relationship. Miguel doesn't like that Johnny began treating him differently because of his relationship with Carmen. Daniel finds Kenny's Cobra Kai hoodie, which obviously Anthony had stolen in this episode, and questions Anthony about it. Anthony lies about the hoodie and says Kenny is instigating fights. What a douche. Kenny fights off Anthony and his friends, leading to Anthony's suspension. So that didn't go well, really, did it, at school? Chris and Terry, based on a bet they made, train their students to use weaknesses in their opponents to their advantage, which sort of leads to something quite fascinating a little bit later on in this episode.
Yeah.
Because I think Silver actually sort of says to one of the students, Kreese has got his weaknesses as well.
He does.
And you can sort of see Kreese's face drop, but we don't really see anything happen till later on. They sort of they take it away from the students. But before we get to that, Miyagi-Do students and Anthony begin weapons and skills training for the All Valley. Daniel becomes disappointed after Anthony takes shortcuts in his training because he sort of trains into the whole wax on, wax off thing.
Yeah,
he goes off. He goes off, and he essentially pays someone to do it for him.
He hires a nearby outfit to sort the car whilst he's on his bloody phone or something, and he gets found out. Not good.
No. Like I said, he's sort of that lazy, sort of entitled kid.
Mm.
Johnny introduces the Eagle Fang students to Devon Lee, who was the new female member he recruited from the high school debate team. There is quite a funny moment where he's going through the high school and sort of handing out leaflets to join Eagle Fang.
Yeah.
Just so awkward. Just wouldn't happen.
Johnny's always a tone deaf character, and he just doesn't get. He's stuck in the 80s, and he doesn't get like social etiquette of the modern times, and it's very well written. And he effectively starts to like approach young girls, almost. I can't be careful what I say, but he's almost like bothering them and like a predatory older man, and it's funny. Obviously, he's oblivious, he's naive. He just thinks that he's connecting with the younger generation, and in fact, I'd be surprised he wouldn't find himself in prison if he did that in the real world. It's really funny. It's a really good scene. But yeah, nonetheless, he manages to interest Devon Lee, and yeah, he's got a feisty one on his hands.
Yeah. Elsewhere, Johnny refuses to let Miguel train because he's worried about Miguel's injuries. But Johnny later decides to let Miguel continue training, where they're joined by Sam, who says she wants to learn both Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, tensions actually start to rise between Kreese and Terry over their differences between their training styles, all because of that weakness comment. Episode 8 was probably, arguably, one of my favourite episodes. Party Time. We're reintroduced to Stingray after the events of the high school in season 2. He's out on probation and prepares to return to Cobra Kai. The students at Cobra Kai plan for prom as Kreese and Terry train them how to beat their opponents psychologically. Tori asks Robbie to go to the prom as her date, and Kreese rejects Stingray's request to rejoin the dojo.
Yeah, it's a savage scene, actually. Quite a sad one, because obviously everyone celebrates Stingray, and he's a comical character and a lovable guy. And he each waltzes in, hasn't he, with his aviators on. So, you know, I am a big deal. You should be here before. And Kreese like, what has just rolled into my dojo? No chance. And effectively, I mean, he doesn't incite violence, I don't recall, but his words are incredibly cutting and effectively makes sends him packing. It's really quite a sad scene because he just totally doesn't expect it, and he's way off. He's not prepared to meet up against Kreese.
No. And of course, Sam and Miguel also plan on attending the prom together. We're introduced to Shannon, who's Robbie's mother, tells Johnny that Terry gifted Robbie a car and some money. And of course, Johnny is not happy about that. Tensions rise at the prom when Sam and Miguel become distracted at Robbie and Tori. Robbie and Tori, they're trying to avoid the fight. They just want to get on with their night. And it's one of those moments where you sort of feel like their characters are sort of turning the corner.
Yeah.
Like they would have been up for it, but actually this time, like, let's just enjoy the night, ignore Sam and Miguel. But Sam and Miguel sort of end up trying to make them jealous, would you say?
Yes. Yeah.
It's really awkward. It's sort of quite cringy watching. Terry proposes moving Cobra Kai to its original location. Daniel's cousin Vanessa, a psychology student, just word vomiting here, Alex, word vomiting, blames Daniel and Amanda for Anthony's behaviour. Johnny elsewhere has decided he's going to confront Terry, but gets attacked. So Terry attacks Johnny to show Kreese his loyalty.
He gets the shit kicked out of him, doesn't he?
It's quite brutal.
He's quite lucky. Obviously, no, he's fighting, but he's quite lucky not to come off worse because he's knocked out, isn't he?
Yeah.
Silver has him to rights on the floor.
Kreese actually forces Terry to let him go. So, poor Johnny legs it, towel between his legs, bit battered. It's not good. Stingray, being the hostess with the mostest, he has a party at his house after the prom, where, of course, this agreement of no fights before the All Valley is broken, and Sam and Miguel have a scrap with Tori and Robbie, and Sam and Miguel end up in the swimming pool. And then I think everyone dives in. Happy days. I thought it was quite a good moment, actually. It's sort of quite well choreographed. Yeah,
I agree. They're fighting alongside each other, and I think you can see how the different sides and the fighting styles come together. But I think you're right. At least up until this point, it's an interesting kind of twist between the two dojos, and actually, again, the good guys don't cover themselves in glory. Miguel is only doing really what Sam wants him to do, and Sam's obviously enraged, quite rightly, through the events of season 2.
Yeah.
Of the high school fight at the end. But yeah, she almost is the instigator of the conflicts. As you say before, they're not looking for a fight. And they don't come off at all well, do they?
No, it's I think we sort of said this last year as well. It's quite fascinating how the writers do this push and pull with the characters. Like one minute you sort of feel like, oh, they're the heroes, then the next minute they've been vilified. But then, it's just the writing I just think is fantastic. Like there are just good. So many things that you just would not expect.
Really complex characters.
Elsewhere, Anthony, who's grounded and he's not allowed to use his mobile phone, computer, etc., he gets into further trouble for doing exactly that. He's discovered playing on I think his tablet or his phone. Not good for him. Johnny's injuries are tended to by Miguel.
Oh, this is heartbreaking. This
scene. I mean, I think Johnny's pretty much half cut anyway, isn't he? He went back sort of back on the booze. Johnny says he wants to be a father figure to Miguel, but accidentally refers to him as Robbie. And
What?
poor Miguel, he just looks heartbroken. And we end this episode with Terry Silver basically beating the shit out of Stingray when he makes another request to rejoin Cobra Kai. And he ends up in hospital. It's quite brutal.
It is. And not as all as it seems. Of course, we find that out in 2 episodes' time, which I think is a really interesting, again, way of pulling the rug from under our feet as an audience.
Yeah, great writing, as we say. Episode 9, The Fall.
Yeah, it's competition time, isn't it?
Yeah, so the All Valley tournament actually takes part, sort of, I guess, in 2 parts over the 2 episodes. Cobra Kai, Eagle Fang, and Miyagi-Do finally come head to head as the tournament begins. Kreese and Terry, Johnny and Daniel each give their respective students a last-minute pep talk before the skills competition begins. Cobra Kai takes first place in the skills competition, followed by Miyagi-Do in second and Eagle Fang in 6th. Not looking good for Johnny's team.
No.
Carrie Underwood performs at the tournament before the fighting competition takes place. Eagle Fang loses the female competition when Tori beats Devon in the quarterfinals. Oh dear. Poor Johnny. When Daniel notices Cobra Kai students using Miyagi-Do moves, he makes a last-ditch appeal to Robbie to switch sides. Of course you would. Hawk gains last-minute confidence from Moon. Moon's his girlfriend, if I recall. I've only put her name's dreadful.
First season, I think.
Beats Kyler in his match.
That's a good match, isn't it?
It's so good.
Kyler is the dick from, the first season. He's the bully from the canteen. And yeah, it's the matches are very well. Again, it's very well shot, very well written, very well choreographed, really good fun. And you really can't tell who's going to win. It's not like the writing's on the wall and you can tell who's going to come out. I really enjoyed the whole competition. I think I even shared with you a snap as I'm watching on WhatsApp and your picture. I was like, this is brilliant. And I really enjoyed it. I was shouting for Eli Hawk for beating the shit out of Kyler. It's a really good match.
Sam also beats her opponent Piper of Cobra Kai using the combination of Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fang skills again, which was quite a good fight. But like you said,
is that when sorry Dan, is that when when she walks over and she tries to look for Johnny and Daniel's views and they both say, go with your instinct, go with your it's that one, isn't it? It's a really touching moment because they both realise actually they have been training the students, but they haven't allowed them to kind of use the best bits from both. And they both reluctantly go to Sam, look, do what you do is right, both crack on. And it's kind of like it all comes together, doesn't it, in Sam's fight? And it's a really wholesome moment because it both shows that through their stubbornness, they've actually held back the students, but actually because they've allowed them to use both styles, which complement one another, from defensively from Daniel's Miyagi-Do to Eagle Fang's attack, shows that actually it's an effective fighting style, and Sam obviously wins the match, as you say.
Kenny and Robbie get pitted against each other, and Kenny gets eliminated with a broken nose, which you can see the sort of guilt on Robbie's face, as it happens. In the semi-finals, Miguel and Hawk are the first to compete against each other, but this ends up with Miguel basically pulling a back muscle, but it looks worse than it actually is.
Yeah, they do some really funky throwback, don't they, to season 1 where he's in the competition, he wins it, and he's doing some kind of flying kick, and it's almost like he's gonna go for the win, and it's gonna be amazing. Crunch, and the music stops, and he's screaming out in pain on the mat, and at this point, Dan, I was going to turn off Netflix and go to bed.
But you had to watch episode 10,
And I
right?
had to watch episode 10 because you can't leave it at that. And we were all thinking the worst, which is, Miguel spent most of season 4, beginning of season 4, wasn't he? In rehab. He had no use of his legs. He was paralyzed from the bottom down. And we thought, oh, this was happened again. And the cliffhanger is phenomenal because the audience think they know what they're watching, of course. Such a good way to end that episode.
Yeah, I did exactly the same thing. I thought, do you know what? I'll give it a rest and I'll watch the last episode another time. But because of that
Nope.
sort of cliffhanger, I was like, nah, gotta watch episode 10 now. That's it. So enter episode 10, The Rise. So after that cliffhanger, Miguel was actually cleared to fight.
Yes.
Anthony apologizes to Kenny.
Not good enough.
Not good enough. Kenny pummels the shit out of him until Robbie comes in and stops him. Sam and Tori each advance through the competition to become the last women standing. So these two are going to meet each other in the final. Miguel disappears instead of returning to his fight, which advances Hawk to the final round against Robbie. Daniel encourages Hawk to use Cobra Kai moves against Robbie. Adding Eagle Fang techniques as well, Hawk wins the male portion of the tournament.
Didn't such a good battle. Coming. No. A really good fight. So I really enjoyed that one.
Something I've actually put in my notes as well, which I thought was quite fascinating when I was doing the deep dive. So there's a moment where Robbie opts not to retie his gi and instead rips it off completely. So this prompts Hawk to do exactly the same as a very befuddled referee looks on. Adding the spectacular flourish was a way to up the ante, explains Josh Held, who created Cobra Kai with Hayden Schlossberg and John Hurwitz. Going into that sudden death moment, it was the idea of how can you make a fight not just about 3 points? How can you make it different? How can you make it more aggressive? But there's more to Robbie's decision than just bare-chested bravado. The idea of a gi getting ripped, it's Robbie almost saying, I don't care about the gi anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of his first moment of shrugging off Cobra Kai in a way before he even maybe fully realizes it. Of course, it's also just very funny, especially when Eli flexes the hawk tattoo that covers his back.
Yes, his back.
Yeah. Jacob got to rip off his gi, and then we throw the hawk sound effect on it. It makes us smile every single time we watch it. It just felt right. So yeah, I found that quite fascinating, sort of finding that as in the deep dive.
It's as you think about it, I mean, you're right. How can you up the ante in a teenage fighting competition? There's only so much going to go, but in usual films when it's like like the sudden death, usually they shed their armor, don't they? And everything's to play for, and everything's exposed. And it was, I didn't see it as a funny event. I saw it as the seriousness is up. But yes, I think Hawk's return to form was brilliant.
It sort of gets you pumped with them, doesn't it? It's like, oh yeah, come on lads, let's go some. After realizing the benefits of Eagle Fang, Daniel proposes that he and Johnny create their own combined style of karate called Miyagi Fang. The two then encourage Sam to combine the two styles herself. Now, Terry encourages Tori to fight dirty, but Kreese intervenes. Again, I think we sort of see a bit of a U-turn in the character. He's sort of got a bit of a softer side.
But we also see this struggle now between the two characters. One was supposed to respect the other because one was leading the other in battle in Vietnam, and the other one now pushes back, and it just goes to show just how relationship is strained and not all is well in the camp.
Tori actually ends up winning the match following or allowing Cobra Kai to win the tournament overall. And Terry announces his plans to start franchising Cobra Kai. So they want Cobra Kai all over the gaff. After the match, Tori oversees Terry bribing the referee. I mean, that's just insane. I didn't see that coming. I genuinely thought, oh, it's a bit of a fair fight. I know there's sort of like the odd sort of hit between the two where you go, oh, that's a bit dodgy. But you wouldn't sort of go, as the viewer, you think nothing of it. But when you see the bribe and you go, do you know what? He's let some of those hits slide. Bad times.
We'll learn more about that, no doubt, in the next season.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be Tori's redemption.
Robbie finds Johnny and apologizes after he realizes Cobra Kai's effect, and the two finally reconcile. This is it. This is the twist which no one would have seen.
No way.
Kreese gets arrested for Stingray's attack after Terry frames him.
Yeah, so we see a flashback, and effectively Silver says to Stingray, if you really want to be in this, you've got to show me you want it. And he effectively signs up to framing Kreese.
Yeah.
And it's all in Silver's way of taking control of the dojo.
Yeah.
And no one sees it, and Kreese is taken off in handcuffs. And Silver is the architect and the mastermind, and he ends up winning it all. No way. No, I didn't see that. And I thought it was a really, really good twist at the end. It's like comeuppance, but ultimately, Kreese is now on the back foot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, you just... What a twist.
Yeah.
What a twist. Miguel, he's off to Mexico City to search for his biological father. Now, Miguel's mum actually sort of shows a bit of concern, saying that he's never met his biological father and he's a bit of a dangerous man. So we sort of see Johnny heading off to find Miguel somewhere in Mexico. And this season ends with Daniel visiting Mr. Miyagi's grave.
Yeah.
Re-enter Chosen, who we saw in season 3.
Yes, where he goes to Japan. Yeah.
And Daniel enlists Chosen to help him defeat Cobra Kai for good.
Yeah, brilliant. Up the stakes, bringing a familiar face. It's great. Such a great way to finish the season.
Yeah. And I guess on to our overall thoughts and character development.
Yep.
So I've sort of put all of it into sort of like one go, so we can just sort of discuss it together.
Cool.
It was quite an interesting theory, actually. So Mr. Miyagi's theory: there are no bad students, only bad teachers. That lesson has always been right. So throughout the entire show, many teachings from the Karate Kid films were either reutilized or given a new interpretation.
Yeah.
Season 4 of Cobra Kai continues the show's tradition of putting classic Mr. Miyagi lessons to the test. While the students have made bad decisions throughout the series, a lot of their struggles also come from their master's own problems and insecurities. Following Johnny and Daniel's bet against Cobra Kai, the stakes of the All Valley could not have been higher. The losing dojo would have to close the doors and leave a clear path for the other. That alone already has placed a massive burden on their students and would have required a lot of dedication from the senseis. And of course, you've got the constant arguments between Johnny and Daniel, which sort of prevent a real merger between the two dojos.
Yeah.
And similarly, the dreaded pairing between Karate Kid 3's Terry Silver and John Kreese did not go well either and led to nothing but betrayal. Caught in the middle of that crossfire, their apprentices developed was significantly affected. Miguel and Sam, for example, they demonstrated their interest in learning the opposite style, but were constantly discouraged by their respective master. As a result, Sam was not sure of what techniques to use during the final, and Miguel did not even have the confidence to return to his match after being injured. Cobra Kai's students Robbie and Tori were also failed by Kreese and Silver. As pointed out by Silver, Kreese saw Robbie almost as a replacement for Johnny and never as a true individual. As for Tori, who did have Kreese's support, the validation that the character was looking for did not come. After bribing the referee, Terry Silver made Tori's victory at the tournament lose all of its meaning and may have broken the character's trust in the Cobra Kai dojo. And just to sort of round this off, Alex, to face off against Terry Silver's expanded Cobra Kai, Daniel, Johnny, and even Kreese will have to look back at their journeys as teachers and identify the many mistakes that were made. So I think there'll be a lot of reflections as we go into season 5. But that sort of really rounds up my overall thoughts and character development.
I had just a couple of reflections, I guess.
Dan,
for me. So I mean, we've talked about the tournaments we won't go into, but I think too much. But I think the expansion of the women's tournament and then the skills were great. I think it fleshed it out, but ultimately I think it gave something fresh to what would be, another season finale, which culminates in probably something we all guess in terms of a winning outcome. I know the cliffhanger of Miguel's injury was brilliant. I also loved LaRusso's. It always dances between good and bad, doesn't it? And I like that Anthony being the bully, and then Kenny Payne being a fantastic addition to the season, and obviously then some great karma in the closing episodes of the season. Not that I condone the violence, but Anthony, gave a very weak apology to Kenny, and Kenny had enough.
Yeah,
and it was just good to see that even LaRusso's, which was seen as the guiding light of the valley, could also have a bad egg, and that's Anthony.
Yeah.
And of course, then yes, the ending was great. Silver's betrayal of Kreese. I don't think anyone saw that coming. I think it sets up a really explosive dynamic for season 5. Kreese is obviously going to be out on bail. I don't think he'll be in prison. If he's in prison, that's going to be interesting because how can he reach the outer world from there? So I suspect he won't be in prison because he's a vet and he's quite an older gentleman. He'll probably be let on bail or something. But then what does that mean? Will he go join forces with Miyagi Claw, whatever it's called? I don't know. I don't think so. But then let's see, because obviously Silver then is a united enemy. So I think those were my favourite bits, and there were many of them in the season, and I really enjoyed it. There were some not so favourite bits, Dan, and I think I didn't really get the whole Amanda and Tori redemption arc. I struggled with it. It felt forced, and I think for me, if I reflect on it, it felt like it was a way that Amanda would have more of just a minor role in the storylines. I don't really think. I'm not convinced that either party would have really been interested in that relationship. If being a parent myself, and I'm sure you could put yourself in the shoes of Amanda, would you really try and turn around this kid who's effectively sliced your daughter's arm up and given her PTSD? Like, if I was Amanda, I'd be kicking the fucking shit out of this girl. Like, I'd take her to alleyway and I'd belt her because of the things she's done to my child. You wouldn't try and turn her around and buy her groceries and try and get her a job back to school. I think that's horseshit. Personally, that might mean that I'm a worse person. And fine. All right, I said it. But I don't see it. And also, I just think Tori's just far too proud. So for her to give in to then her enemy's mother, I don't know. It just feels a little bit too of a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, Tori's quite a hard character.
She's a bitch. Don't get me wrong, I know why, but
we
she's
get
a bitch.
why now. But
Yeah. And, you know, she kicked the shit out of Amanda's house.
Oh God, yes.
So then, you know,
Yeah.
weeks later, then to turn around and say, I'll get you back into school and come on now, here's some food. And I understand how shit it is. I don't get it, Dan. And I just wonder whether it was just a way, as again, to get Amanda some more airtime, which sounds terrible if I say it out loud. I'll leave it in. I won't edit it out, but I probably haven't covered myself in glory. But I just don't get it, Dan. It doesn't feel right. And I think the other thing I don't think feels right is Miguel heading off to Mexico.
Yes. Again, it just seems a bit odd.
Yeah, he never yearned, at least as far as we've seen in storyline wise, for that biological father. Yes, okay, he wanted that father figure, and yes, the heartbreaking scene with Johnny confusing him in a drunken state with John. What's his face? His son, not Johnny.
Robbie.
That's it. It's heartbreaking, and obviously goes, well, I don't now have a father figure. But then to then want him to go and find his estranged father, don't know. Just seems like it's a mechanism for season 5. Let's go on a rampage and go try and find him. And he's in trouble, and I save him, and we're all happy families again. I don't get it. So I think that was weak. Don't buy it at all. Now, there's my good bits, not so good bits. As an aside, Dan.
Yeah.
I am pleased to say or to see that Tanny Buchanan, who does play Robbie Keane, seems to receive between season 3 and 4 acting classes.
I was going to ask you this question. I was going to say, has your opinion changed since last year?
Ever so slightly. I think he is less wooden, still wooden, but less wooden, more confident in his delivery. I think he might have a better script. I won't give it all away. I think he has all to script work. I think he has worked hard, and I think he's improved. He's still not the strongest of actors by any stretch, but I think whatever's happened, and I think there's been some other things. I think I've seen some other stuff that maybe on Amazon Prime. He's clearly coming to his own as an actor. So he's not quite the mark of disdain that I have on seasons 1 to 3. He's still not great, but he's better. So I can't hate on him, because actually you can see that there's a real improvement in that acting this time around. And I think he added something to this season. You know, he was more of a balanced character. You could see that he was struggling with the things he was seeing at Cobra Kai. And he was finding like the morality part a challenge. And I think that plays through in his acting and then in the delivery of the storyline. So, as I say, I'm not going to knock it. This time around, I think he did a good job. He didn't bring it down. I don't think he was laughable. So I'm not saying he's brilliant. I'm not going to be singing, you know, his praises, but I thought Tanner Buchanan did a good job. That's especially to get out of me today. But I still stand by what I said before. I mean, his acting was appalling. It was wooden and it was atrocious. But this time around, it was a marked improvement.
Before we go on to the listener, Alex, just a little bit about season 5.
Yeah.
When I was writing my notes, apparently filming for season 5 has already finished.
Yeah, it's wrapped.
With production coming to an end in December 2021. So with this in mind, we might see new episodes arriving on Netflix possibly as early as late spring or early summer this year.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how much of a pop culture following it's got now. They're just churning it out.
Yeah, I wonder whether we'll see it maybe about September time.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that much to put it together. There's no CGI as far as I'm aware. Yeah, I wonder whether they'll give the masses what they want. And that's great because, as you say, it's got quite the following now. Strike while the iron's hot. You know, Netflix is saying they're going to be increasing people's subscriptions and stopping people from password sharing, all this nonsense. They've got to justify, you know, the content. And they've got loads of content, right? I'm not saying this is going to be like the jewel in their crown, but as you say, it has really built a cult following since YouTube Red Days. I don't see why they wouldn't bring it out this year.
And the rumour is that it will probably again follow the path of 10 half-an-hour episodes, just to follow that usual trend. But on to the listener, Alex. First up on Instagram, we had Ryan Bomzer.
Oh, right.
He said, "Hey, I recently cut my hair to look like Hawk from Cobra Kai. The video
Oh, what a
link
legend.
to watch is in my bio. I mean, it's a good attempt. I
Oh, did
wouldn't
you watch
say,
it?
yeah, I wouldn't
Oh,
say
brilliant.
it's as tall as Hawks, but I mean, it's pretty
Give it
much,
time.
it's good. It's there.
Oh, wow.
Last we got Leighton. Totally different to the other seasons. The others were brilliant and predictable. This was brilliant, but with a lot of twists and turns. You thought you knew what was going to happen, and you was happy with that. But then it would take a twist, and boom!
Yeah.
I would agree with that, Leighton.
So good.
Talking of Leighton, I'm going to go visit him in September again.
Oh, good.
So Leighton is one of my friends, just to sort of throw out there. He's a big Cobra Kai fan. He absolutely loves it. Yeah, looking forward to seeing him. Shout out to Leighton.
Shout out to him. And shout out to the other guys, Mohawk.
Yeah, I mean, say if people get a chance, jump on there. His handle is just Ryan Bomzer, so RyanBomzer.
What a legend.
Check it out, so good. But that wraps it up for our Cobra Kai episode, Alex.
It does.
What have we got coming up next? We're going to be talking about some crazy fan film theories.
Yeah, really good.
So
There's some nuts ones out there.
This was actually an idea that was birthed from an article my other half showed me just after.
Oh, right.
I think it was around or just before, maybe just after Christmas. I can't quite remember. And
Not one of your fever dreams.
No. So this was about The Holiday, one of our favourite Christmas films, Alex.
It is, yeah, all time.
And of course, we see who was it that is in the kitchen? She starts inhaling the gas.
Kate
Winslet, that's it.
Yes. Yeah, Kate Winslet's taking a deep breath, isn't she? She's inhaling those delicious, gassy fumes of death.
So the theory is that she carks it from inhaling all this gas, and the entire film is a dream. I'm having none of it. I'm having none of it because that is dark shit for a good Christmas film.
Yeah. Effectively, she's brown bread. Very depressing. And I think there's some other ones as well, and how actually we were talking about it in the episodes. We're spoiling it, in fact.
Yeah.
But there's some theories actually they're all dead, and actually this is a bit like the Others film with Nicole Kidman. But I mean, there's loads of different fan theories out there. There's ones from Titanic. There's some Disney ones in there. There are some bonker fan theories. So I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into that because there's some dark, weird, and wonderful ones out there.
Indeed. And then we'll probably do this in a couple of weeks. I'm in Ireland next week. Going to visit the extended family. And then from there, we'll probably look at what's next. I have no doubt we'll probably do a review of Moon Knight at the time of recording.
Yeah.
First episode dropped today. I'm really looking forward to getting my teeth into it. Yeah.
I need to watch that. Oscar Isaac looks phenomenal.
It really does. And the CGI looks fantastic.
Oh, yes.
And incoming, hopefully, we might get a chance to do it. We'll hopefully see the Batman. Who knows?
Well, I've still got tickets down. I've got to redeem them, yes. So when you're ready, let's go and do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it when I'm back from Ireland. I'm looking forward to our spoiler-free walk review for Old Portsmouth and Gunwharf, avoiding the drunks, all the vomit, and all that grisly stuff. And just gut our teeth into a bit of RPATs.
Love it.
Love it. But of course, you want to get involved, you can follow our socials. See if I can remember how to do this, Alex. It's been a while. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at On The Topic Pod. And we have our email, which is onthetopicpodcast@gmail.com. And if you follow any of those socials, I always put a link in the below if you want to leave a voice message. So that will take you through to our host, Anchor. Click accept on your mobile device. Leave us that tasty, time-relevant, delicious voicemail, and you can be a part of the show. And Alex, we have a WordPress.
We do our website, yeah. So it's all one word, on the topic podcast.wordpress.com. Visit that for a chance to see our lovely, ugly mugs, our bios. We've got some links to our affiliate content site, Morbid and Mundane. Joey, shout out to Joey, who's had a little sprog. Hope the family are doing well. But he's also got some wonderful t-shirt designs on his Etsy page. And you can also stream every single episode from the website. So if you want to have a look at our back catalogue, there are literally hundreds to choose from.
Delicious.
If you don't have a particular podcast streaming platform, you can do it straight from the website. So go have a look, go have a mingle, and go and stream our latest episodes.
Yes, please. But that rounds it up for this week. I should probably go shave my mohawk off. I've been Dan.
And I'm going to be in search of some doors because I think there are more wheels in the world. I'm Alex.
And we'll see you next time.